Hey guys, so kind of like how I did my April, May, June, July wrap up, this will have multiple parts, and this specific video is part one of that. Part one of two for the past 4 months, August, September, October, and November. So everything I read in those 4 months in 2 parts. I have quite a bit to talk about. It's not in any specific order. My reading has been a little bit all over the place, so we'll just see how this goes. I'm going to go ahead and get 11 books out of the way right now. I listened to the audiobooks for the entire How to Train Your Dragon series. There's just one that I haven't listened to because the audiobook isn't out yet, and I absolutely have to listen to it. They're all narrated by David Tennant, and he just makes the experience of listening to these phenomenal. I think I gave the first book 3 stars, and every other book, except for the 9th and 11th ones, 4 stars. The 9th and 11th ones were actually 5 stars. And this is very much a series that builds on itself and grows on you the more and more you get through the books. Each book on its own, especially the first couple, aren't great or anything, but as the series grows and builds on what's already happened, it gets better and better. It's just one big old bag of fun, really. Much different than the movie, though, so don't really expect that in the actual books, because they're 2 totally different things. Hiccup, the main character, kind of retains some of the same personality traits, but they're overall way more exaggerated and in your face. His father, Stoic, is basically the same way, similar but more exaggerated. And I think the first book is absolutely the weakest and suffers from fairly poor character development, but all of the characters just become amazing as the series goes on. I absolutely love Hiccup and his dragon Toothless, who's, again, way different from the movie Toothless, and openly talks to Hiccup all the time. And I love Hiccup's 2 best friends, Fishlegs and Kamikaze, the former being even more awkward and even worse at stuff than Hiccup, somehow making Hiccup look good in comparison, and the latter being the kick-butt daughter of a character named Big Boopy Bertha, and she just makes the 2 boys look bad always, because she's just kind of awesome that way. There's a lot of different conflict that each book covers, and it escalates as you go further and further as things just get worse and worse for Hiccup and his friends, to the point where when these last few books hit, you're just on the edge of your seat and rooting for them 100% and just need to know how it all ends. I'm just loving the series and can't wait for the last one. The next book that I'll mention is, well, it's much different than How to Train Your Dragon, I'll say that, obviously, because it's by Stephen King, and it's about a woman trapped, like, naked and handcuffed to her bed all alone in her house. Yeah. Oh man, I didn't really like this one that much. Mostly because of how long and drawn out it is. It just goes on forever. This woman is basically the only character, so we mostly just see her inner thoughts throughout the entire book. There's some flashbacks mixed in there to keep it interesting, but overall it's just a little difficult to read. It's super bleak. It is well written and well narrated, but it's a bit too much and probably one of my least favorites of his that I've read so far. And then for something also completely different, A Little Princess by Frances Hodgson Burnett. Sarah, the main character of this book, is the daughter of a wealthy family and is pretty much treated like a princess by everyone she knows. She kind of acts like one in a very good way, but her life just takes a complete downturn very quickly, and she is almost immediately outcast and treated extremely differently than she was before, having to suddenly live a life in poverty. And here's the great thing, she's just such a great person. She's extremely nice and polite and just overall very respectful and delightful at all times. She takes this hardship in stride and does her best not to let it get to her, not to let the way people have begun treating her affect her. And I actually really enjoyed this book a lot because the writing is really good and the characters and messages of the story are just really nice. It's really uplifting and heartwarming, and I didn't really expect to like it as much as I did. Giselle and I both read this as it's one of her favorites, and I wanted to give it a chance. I ended up getting really into it and loving it, and the audiobook was very good. Next is a book that fit into my mystery mood, and is one of the only physical books I read around this time, which was just really great and really added to the experience. It's kind of funny to say that, but it's true. It's Ordeal by Innocence by Agatha Christie. This was just so much fun, a really great whodunit kind of thing that just lays out a bunch of people that could be a killer and then lets you follow along as the characters try and figure out who it is. This one specifically is about a man who, recovering from amnesia, sees a newspaper about a criminal who's just died in prison after being sentenced for murder. This man, Arthur, realizes that he met the criminal, a man named Jacko, who has been accused of killing his own mother, to the point where he could have given Jacko an alibi and possibly proven that he wasn't the killer. Arthur, feeling awful and guilty and like he has to do the right thing, goes to Jacko's home and speaks with the group of people, mostly family with some others mixed in, who live there. Kind of tells them what he's remembered and gets it off his chest. But to Arthur's complete bafflement, this family is just angry with him for telling them. Because Jacko being the murderer was simple, clean, and easy. And now that the question whether he did it or not, an even bigger question is asked as a result. If Jacko didn't do it, which one of them did? And I just really enjoyed this one, loved Agatha Christie's writing, and just absolutely recommend it. I didn't guess the ending, and it was really awesome. Going back to Stephen King, I read a book written under his pseudonym, Richard Bachman, called ROADWORK. This wasn't my favorite of the Bachman books, but still had this great edge to it. The main character is really interesting, and there's a lot of underlying things going on underneath what he does on the surface, things the main character doesn't really explore in his own mind, doesn't really think twice about or mediate on much, but that are fairly off-putting and speaks to the audience as so. I really like the Goodreads synopsis of this. It's very short and sweet, and it says, "They're tearing down Bart Dawes' home, leveling his memories and destroying his past, all for a highway extension. Funny what that kind of progress can do to a man. Scary too." And that's it. Pretty great stuff. Not the best, but definitely recommended. And then another Stephen King book I read was The Eyes of the Dragon. This is, well, it sort of has some ties to the Dark Tower series, but is way more like straightforward fantasy than the Dark Tower series is. It's got a kind of fairy tale-ish voice to it, as much as Stephen King can be fairy tale-ish. And yeah, like I said, it's pretty much straightforward fantasy. He does it with some great writing and some great POVs, though, and a great villain, one fans of Stephen King's other work may recognize. It's got a lot of fantasy tropes in it, but it really isn't typical at all. It feels really fresh and really works. I think I gave it 4 stars, and it just proves that Stephen King is a great storyteller. I listened to A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. I've never read anything by her before. I heard a lot about this one, thought it sounded pretty interesting and wanted to give it a go, but I don't really have much to say about it, honestly. It was really just okay. It wasn't anything special. I felt like it absolutely had the potential to be something special, but it really fell flat. Just completely. I don't want to give the impression that I disliked it, because I didn't. I just didn't really feel much towards it one way or the other. It's got strong world building, I'll definitely give it that. The parallel Londons and skipping through them was cool and coherent and gave it a good atmosphere in general, but the characters and the writing were just super lackluster. There was just a complete lack of character development. The main character, Kel, was a bit better than the others, but I just didn't feel much of anything towards any of them. I think I'll give the second book a shot and see how I feel. Maybe I'll still want to continue on after that. We'll see. Giselle and I have been listening to the Enchanted Forest Chronicles series together, and in August we finished the second one, Searching for Dragons. Since then, we've read the third and started the fourth. But I just have to say, this is a great series. It's one of Giselle's favorites, and it's easy to see why. It's clever, and it's witty, and it's so much fun. Mixes together a lot of different fantasy elements and old stories, and just gives them new life. Puts things together in really interesting ways, and the second book was even better than the first. We follow a new character, and his voice is just awesome. I love the adventure and the journey of this book, and everyone in it. It's a great series. And the 2 last things I'll mention in this video are 2 graphic novels, the first being East of West Volume 1. I meant to read Volume 2 right after reading the first one, but didn't get to it. It's really difficult to talk about this or really give any opinion on it at this point, because I don't really know if I've really got a great grip on what's going on yet. This is very vague, very atmospheric, but a little sparse. I think I gave this one 3 stars, but I'll wait and reserve judgment overall until I keep reading it. And the second graphic novel is actually the Soulless manga, Volume 1. This is basically just the story of Soulless in manga form. I enjoyed it well enough, though I think it was a little odd in this format, very dialogue heavy, trying to force all the story out, and kind of overly simplified. But the art was great, and if you've already read the book itself, reading this is definitely fun. So give it a shot if you have. If you haven't, I'd definitely go for the book over this. It's just better in general. Anyway, that's it for this part 1. I'm filming part 2 immediately after this, so you'll see that uploaded tomorrow, and then you'll see my December wrap-up after that, because I'm filming that today too, and then we'll basically all be caught up. So keep an eye out for those. Let me know your thoughts on anything and everything I talked about in this video. Let me know how you've been doing, anything. I've been doing great. Giselle and I actually just started a vlog channel, and I'll put a link to that in the description. We'd absolutely love it if you came and subscribed and supported us on there. We really love doing vlogs together, and the ones we've done on our booktube channels have been really well received, so yeah, we made a channel dedicated to our lives. It's mostly for us, really, kind of like a daily journal for the both of us, a lovely little documentation of our life this year and possibly beyond. We'll be filming a vlog every single day. The one that's on there right now, the first one, is really just us explaining why we're doing it, what we hope to accomplish this year, etc. but the rest will mostly be following us around in our daily lives. Each day's vlog may not actually come out that day, depends on how busy we are really, but each and every day will be filmed at least a little bit and will be uploaded at some point. So yeah, go subscribe to that if it's something you're interested in. And anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all tomorrow with part 2.